year ago, I saw a gap that needed to be filled, and I was told to stick with what we had. So I made a choice. I could complain about that gap, or I could become the solution for it. You see, most companies waste thousands on leadership training that doesn't work. I was handed feedback that our leadership principles were missing the mark, and I had to figure out why 54 operations leaders were cracking under the pressure. The results: a 94% satisfaction rate and an 89% immediate implementation rate. Here's exactly how I did it. I'm Miles Threat. Thank you for joining me for Legacy Leaders Lounge. I help ambitious leaders just like you build a lasting legacy, no matter where you're at in your leadership journey. Let me paint a picture of what I was really walking into. Picture this. You're an operations training manager for almost a $500 million company, and your VP of operation comes to you and says, our leadership principles around respect, relationship building, and effective communication are missing the mark. We need a reset with our 54 operations leaders. But here's what he didn't say, and what I'd figured out for myself. See, these frontline operations leaders, they weren't struggling with just communication. They were folding under the pressure and getting squeezed by both sides, from the leaders above them to the team members below them, and they were feeling that pressure. And when those leaders cracked under the pressure, what do you think happened? They take it out on their team. They start cussing team members out and create a toxic work environment. Hell, I would too. Sometimes the best leadership development happens when leaders stop waiting for permission and start taking ownership. So while others were debating what the solution should look like, I made a diagnosis myself. We didn't just need better communication training. Oh, we added it. It's there. But we needed leaders who could stay resilient under the pressure. That's when I created the concept leading with resilience. Not because someone told me to, because I saw what our leaders actually needed. And I'd been seeing it for over a year. And here's where most training programs fail. They treat symptoms and not the root causes. Let me show you how I built a system that actually addressed the real problems. While others were debating whether we needed a new approach, I'd already been out there and gotten trained in them. And that's what leaders do. They bridge the gap between what is and what could be. I invest my own time and money to get certified by a resilience expert. Not because I had to, but because I believed our leaders deserved it, and I knew it was missing in the industry. They need better tools for the pressures that they're facing every single day. And this need right now is getting greater and will continue to get greater until you address it. I didn't just train 54 leaders. I architected an entire system around leading with resilience. Content, facilitator guides, coaching questions, follow-up huddles. See, when you can't bring in the external expert, you become the expert. And here's what I built from the ground up. First, root cause content. I created modules that didn't just teach communication skills. They taught leaders how to stay centered when they're getting that pressure from above and below them. See, real expertise comes from those leaders who live those challenges every day. And if you've never worked in an operations space, you're always going to feel it from above you and below you. Second was pressure-tested material. Every scenario, every example was built around real situations that the leaders would face, not some consultant's theory about what operational leadership looks like. It came from those of us in the trenches. Third, peer facilitators. I equipped 5 operation directors to facilitate this content. You know why? Because when someone who faces the same pressures as you teaches you how to handle them, you listen differently. And those facilitators became mentors for those other leaders during the training sessions. Fourth, interactive application. Not just sitting and listening and looking at a damn slide presentation. These leaders practice resilient activities. Activities that match what they faced on a daily basis so that they can go out there the next day and implement them right away. Fifth was the innovation. I introduced boost huddles, ongoing accountability sessions that last 5 to 15 minutes depending on the leader and how long they need to talk through the concepts, so that they can apply them and live them out there on the operation floor. And this is where leaders could process the pressure and support each other. This is what happens when you stop asking, can we? And start asking, how will we? See, real leaders, they find ways to serve their people, regardless of the constraints. Those constraints can come from way up above you, but you will find a way if you are a true leader. Now, building that system, that was only half the battle. Getting leaders to admit that they needed resilience training, now that's a little different story. That's where it gets interesting. Every organization says that they want innovation, but innovation requires that you try things that you've never tried before. Sometimes you have to prove the concept before others can see the vision. Think about it though. I'm telling operations leaders, hey, you need to learn to handle pressure better. How do you think that's going to go over? It's not an easy sell to people who pride themselves on being tough. And these jobs, they're tough. But here's what made the difference. I wasn't some outside consultant telling them what they needed. I was someone who understood the pressure they were under every single day. Step one, I equipped those 5 operation directors to become facilitators, not just presenters. Facilitators who could create safe spaces for leaders to admit where they're struggling. Step 2, I partnered with the VP of Operations and the HR Director on introducing this leading with resilience as the solution for this leadership reset. The best cultural development happens when passionate internal champions take ownership of the solution, not when we outsource our thinking to external consultants. Step 3, we rolled it out systematically. Small groups where leaders could be vulnerable about the pressures they're facing without losing face in front of the whole organization. The key was positioning this as strength training, not weakness repair. Okay, enough about the process already. I know what you're asking. Did it actually work, Miles? Did those leaders stop cracking under pressure? Here's what happened when someone who understood the actual pressure designed the solution. 94% satisfaction rate and an 89% immediate application rate. Sometimes the best expertise is already in the building. Let me break these numbers down to you. 94% satisfaction rate. That means those leaders who were skeptical about resilience training said it was the most relevant training they'd ever had. And that 89% immediate application rate, that means nearly 9 out of 10 implemented resilient techniques within that first week. And 100% facilitator engagement score. Every operations director who facilitated saw maximum engagement from their groups. I was blown away by that one because that was my intention the whole time, to make it so they could walk in there fully engaged, bringing value to those team members right out the gate. And to boost Huddle effectiveness, 89% found them helpful for ongoing pressure management. Those are some world-class numbers there. The same concept that started as my diagnosis of the real problem just delivered the highest training satisfaction in the company history. But here's what the numbers don't show. The conversations that changed. The moments when leaders chose resilience over reaction. Team members who stopped getting yelled at because their leaders learned better ways to handle pressure. One participant said this is the best training they had ever had in 8 years being in that organization. See, the best solutions come from people who understand the real problems. So I know you're asking, what's the lesson here, Miles? What happens when you dig deeper than the surface problem? See, this experience taught me that transformation happens when leaders stop waiting for perfect conditions and start creating them. And that's adaptive leadership in action. See, most leadership development fails because they're treating symptoms instead of root causes. Someone says we need better communication, so we teach communication skills. But what the real problem is the leaders are cracking under pressure. Innovation happens at the intersection of need and initiative. I saw the need, I took the initiative, and I created a solution that actually addressed what was really happening on the operations floor. The question isn't whether the organization will embrace new approaches to leadership development. The question is whether they'll lead the challenge or follow it. If you want to see the framework I use to diagnose real problems and build transformational systems like this, check out my book, The Adaptive Edge, Leading with Purpose in Turbulent Times. The link is in the description below. If you're a leader who's tried surface level solutions and ready to address the real challenges that your people are facing, schedule your free strategy call. The link is in the description below. What's your experience with leaders cracking under pressure? Have you had to create solutions when other people couldn't see the real problem? Drop a comment and let me know. I'm Miles Threat. Thank you for joining me for Legacy Leaders Lounge today.